Drinks, food, art, fun. This is Hops and Spirits Kentucky.
Happy Thanksgiving. I hope you have a great holiday. I hope you get a lot of good food, a lot of good drinks, and enjoy celebrating it with friends, family, or however you are celebrating this week. I hope you have a great time no matter what. And we've got a great episode for you this week as we talked with Talbott Tavern down in Bardstown. They have an amazing history there, and it's both just amazing who has stayed there. It's got a little bit of haunted history. It's also got some great food and bourbon there. Kind of checks off all the boxes here on Hops and Spirits Kentucky. But before we get to that, some news and notes for you this week. Congratulations goes out to Crank and Boom Ice Cream for being named a 2022 TripAdvisor's Traveler's Choice. The distinction is given to attractions and restaurants that consistently earn great reviews and are ranked within the top 10% of properties on the TripAdvisor site. Crank and Boom has 2 locations in Lexington, the Distillery District and on Clays Mill Road. They have amazing ice cream, and you can booze those up too for those adults that want a little bit more. So a lot of great stuff to check out there. Kentucky-based distillery Log Still Distillery is entering the Ohio market for the first time in a partnership with Heidelberg Distributing. Monks Road Bourbon and Rattle and Snap Tennessee Whiskey will hit shelves statewide in Ohio by the end of November. Log Still Distillery is guided by Wally Dant and cousins Lynn and Charles Dant. That might sound familiar. The Dant family has a long history in the bourbon world. And Log Still is rebuilt on old family distillery land and reimagined to create a unique bourbon and family destination. It's a cool campus that you have to check out, from amphitheater to inn to entertainment venue. It's amazing out there. You need to check it out if you haven't, in Nelson County. And last but not least on our news and notes, another Kentucky-based bourbon company, this one in Louisville, Bro Brothers, is planning a second distillery location with a tasting room, bar, and outdoor game area near Waterfront Park in Louisville that looks to open by March 2023. It will be located at 1250 River Road, less than a mile from the newly announced pickleball entertainment venue that we talked about last week. Founded by brothers Chris Victor and Bryson Yarbrough, they opened their first location in the Park Hill neighborhood at 1460 Dixie Highway at the end of 2020. But up next is our Q&A with Talbott Tavern down in Bardstown. Chuck Wood joins me to talk about the amazing history there and so much more. Enjoy.
Remember to check out Hops and Spirits on social media at Hops Spirits, all one word, on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and Twitter. You can also find Hops and Spirits on YouTube and at hopspirits.com.
Joining us here for our Q&A this week, he's the front house manager at Talbott Tavern down in Bardstown, Kentucky. Let's welcome in Chuck Wood.
What's up, everybody?
Well, Chuck, I appreciate you joining us. I always like to start these off with a little Cliff Notes section, and I always preface this with, let's not give away every secret, because I know some folks can talk a lot about what they do and everything. So just a little bit about yourself, but not getting too much into what you do there at the tavern yet.
You got it. My name is Chuck. I started here last November. Quickly, I joined management, and I've just been doing that as well. And then I'm also an author by trade, so I'm slowly working on a more historical piece of work that we give out to our guests.
I like it. Now, how did you end up there at the Talbott Tavern then?
It's because of the history. My publishers had actually posed the idea to me to write a historical nonfiction piece, and the history of this place, when you tell it, it kind of reads like fiction. And so I was just kind of stuck there. I was enamored. And then when I actually really started delving into the information, it just gets more and more fantastic, because it is the oldest stagecoach west of the Allegheny Mountains, and there's been a lot of amazing things that have happened here in Bardstown. There's just, and then of course, with this being the last stop before you headed west, everybody has been here a time or two. A lot of famous people throughout history.
Well, I was gonna say we'll talk about those famous people here in a second, but for those that are wondering where the Talbott name comes from on the Talbott Tavern, where is that? And I'm guessing it's a family name when it all got started back there in the 1770s.
1779 to be exact. Absolutely. That was the original name, and then it's changed names a handful of times throughout history, but it did circle back and come back to the original.
And so why, I guess, keeping with that name for y'all there, why keep that name? Is it just the history of the place and just wanting to pay, harken back to its days when it first started?
I mean, I think it's everything, and then a little bit to pay homage to, I mean, the originality of this place. I mean, it is beautiful. It's incredible, and I mean, when we tell the history to our guests, it's just easier to say, welcome to the Talbott Tavern. The Talbots are the original builders and owners of this place. It's since changed hands a handful of times, but now it's the Kellys, and I believe they've owned it since the late '60s.
And like I said, you mentioned that history, and there's so much of it dating all the way back to 1779. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because, like you said, it was the last stop on the stagecoach trail. Basically, a bunch of points ended up right there as well. So anyone and everyone has stayed there.
They have. Well, back when this was originally built, we were not Kentucky. We were known as Salem, Virginia, which is part of the original 13 colonies. But one of the most fascinating things about this place is that during the French Revolution in 1790, King Louis of France, this was Marie Antoinette's lover, stayed in this hotel as a guest of George Washington for 8 years. And while he was here, he had these wonderful murals painted on the walls upstairs. And, we actually discovered them many, many, many years later. But also in those murals, you're going to find bullet holes that Jesse James supposedly left behind when he was drunk. We believe it to and people do come here. It's really interesting, the guests that come in, and we tell them the stories, and they're like, oh, I'm a 18th cousin of Jesse James, or everyone is somehow related to our story. So it's all like one giant family tree. It's really cool.
Well, I was gonna say, I mean, not only have there been some cool things in terms of who has stayed there, but there's also, like, this would have been perfect back in October to talk about this, but there's a little bit of a haunted history there as well.
There is. We do have quite a few of the hauntings. So in our main building, we've got 6 rooms, and they're all named after the patrons, who at one point stayed here. So you've got the Lincoln Suite, the General's Quarters, General Patton, and General George Rogers Clark, and the Jesse James room, which is also pretty fantastic. But each one of our rooms has a little notebook, and people, they sometimes people don't have any experiences, but sometimes when they do, they write it down, so you can go through the pages and see, someone saying they, something pulled off their covers in the middle of the night, or their door was jiggling, or something kept knocking at the door, but nobody was on the other side.
Well, and didn't you all also have a fun experience with that one time?
Absolutely. Back in February, so every Friday and Saturday we do live music down in the bar, and I was the last one out as the manager, so I was going upstairs to do a drop, and I noticed that the rocking chairs, 2 at a time, were going. And from what we understand, when things happen in twos, we think it's these twin boys that died. But yeah, so I got the rocking chairs, we got the chandeliers. Those happen pretty often. And then back in, I guess this would have been March, we had a really fantastic snowstorm, and so we closed down the restaurant and the bar, but I still had to stay on to run the hotel portion and do check-ins. And then at the time there was too much snow and I couldn't drive to my house, so I stayed in the hotel. I stayed in room number 1 the first night, the Lincoln Suite, and I woke up to the chain rattling, and the door was wide open, and the door was just hitting the door frame. So I reshut it, and then I put the chain back on, and then an hour later, same thing. And then the next night, I stayed in the general's quarters, and there is a doll in there that does move around at its leisure. So I turned the doll around to face the wall. And the next morning, I woke up, it was sitting on the whole other bed staring at me. We've had quite a few guests check out when they've seen the doll move, or, they leave and come back, the doll's in a different place, and it kind of creeps them out. But for the most part, the people that stay in these rooms are here for the antique, for the home feeling, or for the haunted feeling.
I was gonna say, I mean, that has to be a little bit of a jarring thing to wake up to, a doll in general, but a doll that wasn't, you knew you didn't put there.
Absolutely. So nothing seems to be malicious in this place. We've stirred stuff up. This during our slow season this past winter, we replaced all the carpet in the main building. That kind of increased a lot of little activity here and there. And it's really interesting because whenever someone takes a picture of me in the building, I'm always covered in orbs. I've got orbs all over me. It's really interesting. So I don't know if it's just fraction of the light, but it just doesn't seem to be, because the orbs are always in a spot.
Well, it sounds like maybe they just are drawn to you and they're ready to be written about.
I think so. I think so. We also, what's really interesting is usually Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays, we have Patty Starr, who is a local, she does ghost tours. And she had a woman in her last ghost tour from California. And this lady is a medium of sorts, and she channels the spirits by allowing them into her body. So out of nowhere, and they told me about this the next day, but out of nowhere, she said that the spirit of Jesse James was channeling her, and he told the ghost tour people, Patty Starr and Rita, he told them to stop talking about how his mother went to college just up the street. And he also said that he wanted them to put more emphasis on how well he treated his horses. I believe their names were Katie and Starfire, but he wanted more emphasis on the good and how well he treated instead of just the bad and the macabre. So, but that was pretty interesting.
I love it. There's so much history there, and such a cool history. Which, I mean, when you think about it, when you're going back that far, there ought to be. But you mentioned it. You've got the rooms up top. You also have a restaurant and a bourbon bar as well. So you kind of hit the full trifecta if we're talking in Kentucky terms here.
We really do. We stay busy consistently, especially on Sundays and Mondays when everything else is closed. We're the only ones that's open, so everybody comes here, and so they get to really immerse themselves in the history. Not even just in the hotel, but around it. Behind our hotel, we have a cemetery. The oldest headstone that they've told me back there is 1699. It's really weathered and etched, but John Fitch has a memorial back there. I think at one point he was buried back there, and he invented the steamboat. And then there's also a one-room schoolhouse back there, and you can tell the Revolutionary War soldiers that used to be buried back there because they had over the ground crypts. So like just history is steeped everywhere, and it's so fantastic.
I mean, I was gonna say, being down there and being part of Bardstown, whether that's the bourbon world or just the historical side of things, and being right in the center of it all, literally, what's that like? Because I mean, that's got to be able to let you guys
Yeah.
bring in so much different things.
I mean, it's amazing. Like there, obviously, there's the stressors of work, and like employees and stuff like that. But it's all worth it because there's something about this place that draws you in. Like I absolutely love going from the military to managing this place, and it's so much fun. Like I don't know what it is. It's really hard to explain, but I guess when you can't explain it, that's when it's the right place. When you have no words, that's when you're where you're supposed to be. But this place is great. The people are great. The owners, the employees, everything. Even the guests that come in, we meet so many amazing people every single day. Like I said, they all have ties to the history. They had no idea, and they only came here as a stop in for lunch. And some people have no idea about the history we have upstairs until we start telling them about it. And then they thank us.
Well, I was gonna say, I mean, for a writer to have no words, that's an awfully big thing to say.
It's the weirdest thing, and I've stopped questioning it at this point. I always look forward to coming to work. I love it so much because it especially these days, with this newer generation, people, there's a lack of people enjoying history. So when we get to actually tell the people history and they stop what they're doing, they stop eating, and they're just hanging on to every single word, that I think is what makes it so worth it. Because you don't see that anymore. People are, too busy stuck in their phones, and they don't really make that social connection. So it's really cool to be able to give that back to somebody,
Well,
even for a moment.
And you mentioned, you're doing that as a restaurant that's open to everyone, and then you have the bar that's there as well that's open a little later on the weekends. When folks are coming by the restaurant, what can they expect? Because I mean, I've seen some honors, whether it was the top 10 Burgoo by USA Today and some other ones. So I'm guessing they're going to get some good food too.
Well, they're going to get some really good food. We have a wonderful kitchen manager who has totally upped our recent game, and so he's just making these strives to make this place even better than it was. We're getting more creative with our menu. We're coming out with we're going to start bringing back specials and our holiday drinks. Like everything is just coming up roses right now, and it's so cool because we do have the world's oldest bourbon bar. We do have, gosh, over 200 or 300 different bottles just to choose from on the bar. That's not even what's in our storage. Like we have just everything. From our location right here, there are 8 I can count different bourbon distilleries within a 5-mile range. Whether it's north, south, east, or west, they're everywhere. And we work very close with them. In fact, today I'll be doing a Chamber of Commerce meeting at Heaven Hill. So we work very, very close with everybody, and it's cool because they send people, we send people. It's like one giant revolving motion. we're all helping each other out, and it's really, really, it's so fantastic. I haven't felt any type of camaraderie like this since the military.
There is something so cool about just even the alcohol beverage world in general. I mean, you would think that so many wouldn't want to be getting along, but at the end, all tides, lift all boats, or however the saying goes. So
Absolutely, absolutely. And even our gift shop, like, I have not seen numbers like this in a while. People come in and they love the things we have, and like, they just buy it up, and it's so much fun. They're here for lunch, and then they get the full visceral experience, and then they're just then they come back and they keep coming back. We've got people that have been coming back, some for like the last 10 years. Some people request only that one room that they've stayed in the first time. We have people that got married here back in the 50s, the 60s, that come back. Like, it's really cool to be a part of that. And we have people that celebrate their 105th birthday here. Like, it's a very, very special thing to be able to provide such a memory for these people that they want to come back and spend their 105th birthday. Like, that's huge, and it's so it's heartwarming and it's honoring, because I that throughout history, all of the ups and downs, we've still been able to create that connection for people, and they want to keep coming back. And I love that about this place, because you don't see that everywhere.
no, you don't, and like you said, but you guys have so much to offer, and it's so cool to see how it all ties into to everything. You mentioned the bar. I'm guessing beyond the drinks, beyond the bourbon, you have a few other drinks there as well that folks can get and enjoy, and then live music on the weekends, right?
Yep, live music on the weekends, which is always a fun time. But we've also, we have different flights, that we're starting to feature. We have a flight. It's called Kentucky Born and Bred. It's only bourbons that you can get in Kentucky. They don't ship these bourbons outside. So, so if you want to just try one, or if you a sample 4 or 5, we have these wonderful flights that people they love it. Because especially people who are new to the bourbon world, they don't understand the different viscosities in cooking it and baking it, and how it changes up the flavor and the different notes. And so with these flights that we are starting to offer more of, they're able to be like, okay, I taste the vanilla in this one, and this one's got more of a caramel cognac feel, and it's got a slight burn. It's awesome. People really get to experience bourbon on their own terms here, and it's versus doing a tour where someone's telling you what you need to be feeling and sensory enjoying.
I was going to say, how difficult is that though at times, because you are immersed in the bourbon world down there? There's plenty of tours. There's plenty of stops that they can make either on the way to Bardstown, just in Bardstown, or on the way out. How do you kind of set yourselves apart when they get to come in there? And obviously you've got the food and you've got a lot of selection, but like you said, is it just being able to showcase more than just maybe one brand or a family of brands?
Honestly, for the most part, if you were ever to go and look at our reviews, you're going to see a lot of employees named, by their name, because people remember the experience. They remember good customer service, and they remember how well they get treated here. And that's one thing that has really increased recently, is that people, like my staff, they're remembering the names of these people who are coming in, and likewise, these people are remembering the names of my staff. And some people, like, I've got this one couple, they come in maybe 1 to 3 times a month, and they request Christine, the server, every single time. Like, it's stuff like that. People just remember their experience here, and then they just go by that. They're going to get a great experience. And if they don't, then we're going to make it right, and we're going to help them to do that. We're all about, second chances and changing someone's mind.
Well, and you mentioned you have a little bit of everything there. So if someone were to step foot on a given day, what are they going to expect, and what can they do there? Because obviously, like I said, there's a lot that can go on at the Talbott Tavern.
Well, they're going to step in, and they're going to immediately be greeted by one of my smiling, bubbly hosts. And then, they'll be directed to the restaurant or to the bar, are here to check into the hotel, and they're gonna receive great direction. And then on top of that, they're gonna get a history lesson right there, right off the bat. They're gonna be able to peruse our gift shop and see all the cool shirts and sweaters and knickknacks and pillows and all these amazing things that we have custom made just for our gift shop. And then if they decide to sit down, they're gonna get just a sensory overload of options from our wonderful menu, from our bourbon walnut chicken, like you said, to our burgoo, to our hot brown, which I've tried almost every hot brown in this town, and ours is definitely the best. And I'm not biased. I would tell you if it was wrong, but ours is definitely the best. What the thing that we do different with our hot brown is what makes it so good. And it's definitely a meal that will stick to your ribs. That's why we don't offer sides with it.
I like that. I like that. And for those that are staying, you guys have the 6 rooms there. I think you also have a secondary inn as well, correct?
Yeah, we have an annex building behind our hotel that has 15 more rooms. When that building was first built, I believe in 1913, they built and sold Packards, the old car. And then it became a bank and then an apartment building. And then we acquired it in 2016 and converted the apartments to hotels. So a few of the rooms on the first floor, the closets are old bank vaults. But it was a professional interior decorator that came in, and all those rooms are so tasteful and beautiful. Exposed bricks, big windows, great views, whichever way you're looking, and very comfortable setting. So we've got the 15 rooms over there if people are looking for the more modern. But then we've got the 6 rooms over here if people want that antique, homey feel with a little bit of flair.
Well, I was going to say that flair is pretty awesome, and you mentioned those notebooks in those rooms. I loved reading about that, and even hearing you talk about it, because you think about that when you maybe go to some of your vacation spots. You can write, "Hey, thanks for letting me have a great time." But like you said, those notebooks go back a good ways and have some good bit of information in there.
They do, and every time one fills up, I put it in the office and then I replace it with a fresh one. But these fill up relatively fast, and the stories in there are really, really fantastic. She's from the Louisville Courier. She did a report, and she was reading, on air. We were doing another interview, and she was reading from it, and it was really cool how somebody had reported that their shower curtain slowly opened, and that she woke up and she saw just a dark shadow standing at the foot of her bed. Another one reported that they saw somebody laying in bed with them. There's a picture circulating online where somebody took a picture of the Talbott Tavern around 2 a.m. from outside, from the middle of the square, and you can see what looks to be Jesse James standing in the window. Obviously it's all up for interpretation. There's skeptics out there, but it's cool to, just to believe. It's cool. If you do, if you don't, it's still cool because it's something.
Well, and like you said, no matter what, there is legitimate history there. There has been proven history there with folks that have stayed there and so forth. And I guess before we wrap up, are there any other fun stories that you can part with before we say goodbye?
I just had this guest. They were here 4 days ago, and they just sent me an email. They were particularly interested in our original business license from the late 1700s because it had the name Richard Parker on it. And he emailed me, him and his cousin or his sister Peggy, and they said that they have a particular interest in that tavern license because Richard Parker, who's named on that, was their relative. And so they sent me this old Bilson map from 1784 showing me the exact location of where Richard Parker's house was, at the intersection of 2 rivers and the Cartwright Creek. And it's so cool that, people see something, like I never paid attention to the names on the original license, but somebody did, and it turns out to be their relative. And so like the best thing about this whole place is that people are connected to it. Even if you don't know you are, you're somehow connected to it. And that's what's the coolest thing about this.
Well, and I was going to say, and if folks want to get connected and maybe have questions, what's the best way obviously they can stop by and get that history lesson, but how else can they go about it, and how open are you to all that?
I mean, we're extremely open to it. Our rooms, they do book up fast, especially Fridays and Saturdays, because we do offer live music and we just offer a really good experience. But talbotinn.com, or you can just Google the Talbott Tavern. You can make reservations there, or you can call us personally and make a reservation. Either way, just make sure you book up your rooms fast because they do sell out. We are going into our slow season, so we're working on being able to offer something during the slow seasons that, we don't offer during the busy season. So, either way, no matter what, if it's if every room is booked or if only one person's staying here, you're still going to have just an amazing experience, and we invite everyone to join us.
Well, and whether that's food, a good drink, good night's sleep, or maybe or all with a side of history, it sounds like it's a fun time no matter what. And Chuck, I appreciate you taking the time to share the story of the Talbott Tavern, because there's so much to share. And like you said, maybe this could be a good book for you.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. And whenever new information pops up or new ghosts, stories, I'll make sure I send you over some info about it.
Absolutely, I appreciate that.
Hey, thank you so much, man. It was a fantastic time having this with you.
Find more from Hops and Spirits at hopspirits.com.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.